asked them to give us their top 10 tips on how to improve yield. And we got a whole lot of responses. And today I'm going to ask Nathan Alexander, who is our senior marketing consultant, to go through them for us. Now, Nathan has 19 years of enrollment marketing experience and has been consulting for 5 years. So we're lucky to have his experience in-house and have him kind of go through these main points that we've discovered, as well as providing some stories about what he's seen and about what works and what doesn't work. I personally have about 6 years in higher education marketing at TWG Plus. And with that said, we can go ahead and get started. Now, we do like to make sure that we keep it in under 30 minutes, and we do that for a simple reason. We just don't want to beleaguer the webinar, and we just want to be able to have discussions after the session. So at the end of the webinar, we'll let people put questions in the little chat box on the lower right-hand side, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Now, when we were starting research on this, we came along this stat from NACAC. Now, this is in 2015, and it was interesting that 63.8% of schools that accepted students will not attend. Now, that's a pretty staggering number, and that caused Nathan and I to start thinking about, well, when do we need to start thinking about marketing or yield marketing? So Nathan, getting started, when should we start thinking about a yield campaign?
Well, obviously you should start, early. I want to encourage you to start thinking and have your strategies going. It is in some instances as early as the sophomore year. You need to to start reaching that, because obviously little yield places along the way are beneficial. A lot of times we focus just yield on on our seniors, and but we, very much you've got to look even further than that. The sophomore, year is crucial to kind of get that started. Now, in small increments, you want to start that there. I want to engage people. I want to get them doing things, and that can be considered yield. But building awareness over the first part of the years. Now, where we all talk yield now, where a lot of that is focused is just in the senior year and moving people from app to accept to deposit paid. But so a lot of this will be focused on that. But I want to just reemphasize: start early, and it really starts with a plan when it comes to yield. Now, you got to think about yield, and it talks to many different areas. But when we're first in life and doing things, and we're the first one to get mail, we're the first one to visit a campus, we're a first kid to go to college, those first are important. So if your financial aid award and your merit awards are the first on the table, that is key. And with prior year, this year, the jury's still out on whether it's going to make a huge difference or not. Maybe this time next year we'll be talking about prior year and, hey, it did well for all our families and everything. But I think the jury's still out on that. But having your financial aid awards out early, having them clear, are very, very important. And, again, it goes back to your plan. Starting early is having people on your campus and making sure you have the right kind of events. And we're going to get into this a little bit more when we talk tactics later, but having those early, not waiting till the last minute to get it all done. So, another thing to think about is your MPCs and your scholarship calculators. Some schools are really out front and about that kind of stuff and want students and families to take a look at it. I highly suggest that because families are shopping, and but it is another way to gauge stickiness or engagement. And it can be a yield for you. It can help further that conversation along, and it is something that needs to be measured. So, and another point to think about is engaging parents. Parents are so critical in the process. We do realize that some students make that choice by themselves and they're paying for it themselves, but the majority have somebody, a parent or a guardian, that is involved in their college process, and we need to engage them earlier, engage them in ways they want to be engaged in, and measure that. So that goes to that. We can move on, Tal, if you want to.
Well, Nathan, you got provided some interesting points around that. Can you think of any examples where you've seen these tactics work?
Oh, many senses. When you're thinking yield and you're trying to get more and more people to move from step to step, I've seen this major shift from years gone by of where we did orientation sessions very late in the summer. I've seen those now to where those are being moved back into April, May. And what we're doing there is, and then the whole intent in there is to get kids so much more connected to your campus and to your processes and to your people. All these campuses are just alike. A lot are made of brick and mortar, but it's the people that make them. So we've got to get people connected and get people engaged to our people, whether that be the enrollment team, that be the academic member, an advisor, a coach. All the people, the more people we can get engaged and connected to a student and their family, the better chance that we're going to have to enroll them. So
Gotcha.
that's one example to think about.
Gotcha. So after starting early, and I know that people are out there sending out their acceptance packages right now, the question becomes, well, what goes into a good acceptance package?
Well, acceptance is one of the major points along the yield cycles or the yield points that we talk about in enrollment management. You've got yield points being, you want to get a kid to visit campus, you want to get a kid to apply and be admitted to your school to be able to get them a cool acceptance package. You want to get them a financial aid award. But I want to just talk to you, the acceptance is a big deal. With many families, just sending a letter in a regular envelope and a whole bunch of stack of forms just doesn't get it anymore. Everybody's ramping their games up, and this is one example. I am a Norse, and it's actually a die-cut poster for University of Northern Kentucky University, where you take a picture of it and you hashtag it. I've seen schools like Samford University recently have a branded flag that says Class of 2021 on it, and students are taking their picture with it, and it's a cool looking thing. It's something they'll take and hang on to forever. That's a long-lasting piece of swag. The acceptance package is so important in that sense because families want to know from task, what am I going to do? What steps do I got to go through? Definitely you see here, this is like a bifold type of thing, but this is just simple. You can dream here and really go all out if you want to, or you can go with the basic types of things. But the big thing is we want to get people to move from the accepted stage to the next step, whether that be advisement or paying their deposit or signing up for a residence hall. And we want to give them the steps, and we want to help them along the way. One way to do that, is maybe an accepted student site where you bring all those pieces of the pie together, the residence life, kind of the roommate sign up, the orientation, the immunization, the social media sites for everybody that's coming together as a freshman class. Maybe you create one of those and to drive those people together and get them talking and interacting and engaging. And ultimately, every student, you want to get them to campus as many times as you can, because that's where you create the stickiness. You get them there, and you've got them in your zone, in your area, and that way, I mean, I think it's just definitely a win-win for both the family and the student. So that's a little bit more about acceptance package.
So also when we got back, we got back our list of top tips. There was one thing that came up a few times, and it included being more aggressive or more proactive about marketing, not just sitting back, but moving things forward. What do you think about that?
Well, being proactive. Ultimately, in enrollment, we're all, for the most part, a lot of people are using CRMs to drive things. Ultimately, you have to measure to be able to manage something, and everything you do should have some kind of measurement. Is it working? Are we getting an ROI? I highly recommend people to be proactive and think outside the box, because little things that you do, whether it's a program, a yield program to have faculty call your accepted students, and you measure how they do, how many calls they make, how many contacts they make, what was the comments. Those things, coach is reaching out to accepted kids that, within the right kind of times. Potentially a staff member, a VP or a president that makes a call to an accepted pool of students that you're trying to try to yield. Little things matter, but you have to measure them, and you have to keep up with them, and know what's working, know what's not, and the timing has to be right. So, and being able to move on a dime. That's one thing a lot of admissions offices pride themselves on is, hey, we can react to what the market is doing, and because every strategies change, and tactics change, and the market changes, so we have to be able to maneuver for that. Another thing to think about is use your digital side. Use digital marketing to help you, maybe through retargeting or remarketing. So if students are doing things on the web and they're taking actions, maybe they're signing up to meet their roommate, or signing up to make a roommate request. That's maybe you tie in remarketing to those things, and boom, your ads or your brand building messages come forefront back to them again at a later time, and everybody in their family. They're seeing, hey, this is why Western Oregon is a great choice, for using Western Oregon here as an example. So I'll challenge you to think about using remarketing so that you stay top of mind within that family, from that student throughout the process.
Gotcha. Now, have you seen any examples of things that have worked well in the past on really kind of moving people through that funnel?
Well, I have. Mississippi College, Kyle Brantley, and he was a great. He's a great young man, and he contributed some things. They do a lot with what they do, receptions throughout the areas of Mississippi and Tennessee and Alabama and places like that, and they're very intentional on where they go, and the students that come, and they spend time with these families, and then they know about these families, of what these students have done, and these families, where they are in the process, so that they're very intentional on what they're trying to get them to do from move to stage, from step to step, being from accepted to deposit, or to deposit to doing their advisement, or whatever it might be. Receptions is one of those things, and they're keeping up with that, and they're recording that along the way in their CRM, so they know what's happening with each student. They're not just sitting back and expecting them to come. They're going after them proactively.
Gotcha. So then, kind of dovetailing with that, going out, going out proactively and staying engaged with the student, obviously that becomes extremely important. So then how do you recommend that folks stay engaged?
Well, there's a myriad of ways I've seen and done. And again, I go back to, you have to measure it, and you have to, you've got to plan for these things. Everybody can't send 17 postcards and to 4,000 or 5,000 people. Every school can't do that. So you've got to pick and choose how you do things, but you got to make sure you're getting the results. The biggest thing is just because the student's committed and paid their deposit or been accepted doesn't mean they're going to enroll. So we've got to continue to build brand and build why it is a good reason that you've chosen XYZ or you're considering XYZ school, in statistics, in potentially with people coming back to them. So you've got to continue those communications all the way through enrollment. And, be honest with you, you need to be continuing while they're there so that you reinforce that their decision to come to your school was the best reason, was the best choice for them. So continually, communicate why it was a good decision. And, get people involved. If you know that the student has a very focused interest in a certain, let's say, fine arts, connect that faculty member with them that's their specialty there so that they have even more of a connection and create more stickiness. You can definitely use email, the handwritten notes, phone calls. Those all matter to young people and to families and parents too. They want to feel wanted, and we have to continually do those kind of things because if you're not doing it, the school down the street probably is with the same person. So you've got to keep up. You've got to in order to make those classes, it's critical that you keep your game up. So I want to, this is another way to keep engaged is use your feeder schools. Stay in front of those schools, doing things in those schools, to help them. You're going to pick up students along the way by just being present and doing things. That's more than just doing the tater tot tour or the lunchroom visits. It's being a partner there and being in front and involved so that they see XYZ, you see your school in front of them, and you're more of top of mind. And it also gives you a chance to connect with your students that are potentially coming to your school, from that local high school or secondary school. So, all right.
Yeah, thank you. I jumped the gun a little bit on the next slide. So obviously. ROI is important and establishing benchmarks is important. So what's the best approach to measuring a yield campaign?
Well, when you think about measurement, can mean a lot of things. You've got to, if you're doing an outreach program with, email and postcards, you've got to see, are people getting these emails? Are they interacting? Are they clicking? Does follow-up need to be done behind those? Are you recording that in that student's record that this stuff is being done? I say create the information clearinghouse. Unfortunately, a lot of college campuses operate, and there are a lot of silos out there, and everybody's trying to do their thing. But when the enrollment office has or the marketing and admissions folks have to be on their back that they've got to enroll a certain number of people in class and shape the class or build those things. You've got to be the driver of the information. So you need to know who's doing what, who's reaching out, and keep up with those kind of things. And it takes some coordination, and it takes some being spot on really to make sure that you're doing it right. But it will pay off in the end because you'll be able to see your strategies that are working and ones that maybe aren't performing the way they should. And those processes, I think I've pretty much talked about that. But, measure the engagements. Look at those critical points along the way and make sure that your students are engaging and the people in those areas, whether it be admissions, it be financial aid, it be business affairs, it be the advising part, it be the orientation, it's residence life. Make sure that they're reaching back to them. If those students are engaging, that there's a two-way communication going. Because if it's not happening, you've hit a roadblock, and you need to go bust those roadblocks down and get those students through and take care of that. So you've got to be the champion for that, or the cheerleader, either way. So, but measure that stuff. And it matters.
Right.
And when you're working thousands or hundreds of students, they fall through the cracks if you're not paying attention.
So that brings us up to our next question, and this one I like the most because I've heard talk to you before about this, about creating a unique experience. And this statistic that we found while we were out researching, that 50% of colleges consider email, website visits, counselor outreach, high school visits, direct mail, and the laundry list of things as very important to their process. And what that tells me is everybody's doing it. So the question is, so how do we make ourselves stand out if everybody is sending an email and doing counselor outreach and high school visits, and then following it up with direct mail? And I'd love to hear your take on that.
Sure thing. And a couple of our folks that helped garner, this isn't all my information, but this is a lot of what we've learned and from some of our friends in the business. And they keep coming back to me and saying, hey, Nate, you've got to show, why are you different? What makes your institution special? And you've got to play those things up. And whether it's, the experiences they get, when going through the process, it's the people that make the difference. I constantly challenge you guys to think about what makes you different. What makes what you're doing special when it comes to yield, and try to think outside the box. I think about Sanford and how they did their flag that said class of 2021 already on it, and Stanford University. That was different, for a sort of a swag thing. Some schools are actually differentiating their financial aid packages, and they're ramping that up to show their value and how they're different, and what makes, a great investment at their institution. And different programs. If you can segment down your yield approaches that get that specific. So if you've got certain students that are interested in nursing, you are, tying in your yield activities to specifically their major. That's one way. It's just segmented. It's just getting more personal with those prospective students and their families.
Well, then when we were talking a little bit earlier, you were talking about secret shopping and what you used to do to keep up with what the other schools were up to.
Yeah, that's important. If you don't know what your competitors are doing, and your aspiring institutions are doing, you're falling behind the game. You got to get out of your box. You've got to get out there. You need to get some people on your team that understand your school and get, if your dog needs to be on their mailing list so that you know what they're doing, and so that you're learning and you can be be proactive in the whole thing. And I've seen in past where schools have actually sent people on their team to go do visit days with a son or daughter or a niece or nephew, and just experienced it to see what are they doing good, what are they doing bad, what are we doing different, and come back and evaluate and measure that, and do that frequently. It happens in the business world. We all know what our competitors are doing, but it also happens on the college side, and I challenge you to continue to get better, but also show how you're different and what makes you special. Because a lot of it, we're just brick and mortar, right? With different names on it, but it's the people that make the place.
That's great. It's a great way of saying that. So then, all right. So how do we differentiate our campus so that get our students there?
Well, I mean, honestly, how do I get students to my campus? You've got to ask them to come, and your campus and your people are your best selling point. They're coming to spend 4 years, sometimes 5 for a victory lap. But if you can get students on your campus, you have the best chances of enrolling them. And really, that first less than a minute makes a huge difference. They're coming out of the car, they're sizing you up. So you better, you got to be on your A game, and you need to pay attention to the money walk. You need to pay attention to, and that being your campus tour, pay attention to what your residence halls look like and your buildings. Those things, I mean, students are looking at this, and colleges are ramping their game up. And so if you're falling down in those areas, that's some area you got to go be the cheerleader for. And the campus visit is huge. But again, you have to ask people. You've got to engage the parents and ask them to bring their students. If you're doing a comprehensive and doing parent campaigns, that's one of those things. You're asking them to visit just like you're asking the student, because they're making the investment in their time and their money along with their student too. So I just encourage you, that creates stickiness.
Right.
When you can get kids on campus.
Have you seen any campaigns for a campus visit that you thought were particularly interesting or got your attention?
Well, I've seen some things, Stetson University, I commend them for this. I was working with one school, and I saw where they had sent, they were working very hard out of state to get students to come down to Florida and visit them. And they're near the Orlando area, but they wanted people to come and visit with them. So they sent a boarding pass to them that explained, how easy it was a trip to get there. They were 30 minutes from the airports and all this kind of stuff. But on the back, it talked about incentives for them to come visit, whether it would be dollars off or they covered potentially, certain things, airfare or something like that. Different schools do it different ways, but that's one way to kind of incentivize it. Tying things into major events. I've got another school that I've worked with here in Eastern North Carolina that has a really awesome concert every year, and they bring certain types of major specific kids in for that. And there's kids come from 3 states, bus loads of them. They'll have thousands of students here, but they got them on their campus, and they capture that name, and those kids get a great experience when they're here. So those are ways to get students to campus. You can think outside the box, but you got to be always thinking. You got to be looking for those ways to be different, and it helps by paying attention to your competitors.
Yeah, and it also seems like just having interesting hooks to get into the mailbox or online, something that's going to kind of make a splash or an impression once you get there, like so that
right.
It's not lost in the shuffle of mail.
Of a million other messages. So yeah, being creative with your digital marketing, with your electronic marketing, that whether it be in the mailbox, the inbox or the sandbox, being creative about how we ask for things or how we invite people. Catching their eye. How can you be different, not just the same old humdrum? Please come for a visit, or visit us for open house. Name your events. Make sure you have, if you've got a visitation day, have a cool name for it. Those things will stick in their head, and that'll stick with them. Not just an open house or a visit day. You need some kind of name with it.
Yeah, and I also think. Go ahead. It just made me think of like that old WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? So really speaking to the value in what they're going to get. And that goes back to experience, but providing something that tells them, exactly what they're going to get.
Right. I think that it matters, and paying attention to the whole family. Because nowadays a lot more students will come with not just one parent. They'll bring a couple parents, and I might even bring a grandmother. So you got to be ready for those things. I've seen it happen plenty of times, and then that's just because it is it's a family. In a lot of cases, it's a family decision of where the son or daughter goes.
Gotcha. And I think we're on my favorite section, the digital strategies, which of course we use throughout each one of the phases of this funnel. But let's talk about which digital strategies that you've seen and the ones that we use a lot too.
Well, obviously, online tactics. You've got to be there. They're talking about you, and you need to be paying attention. Whether they're talking good or bad about you, you need to be paying attention, and you need to be responding. Having a goal when it comes to social media. The social media portals that you use, making sure you use them correctly and you use them to the fullest extent. We realize you can't be on every single one of them, but pick the few that are good and do a good job with it. Whether that be, Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat, Facebook. Yeah, they're there and they're talking about you, and you want to be in that conversation and paying attention to it. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to jump in here. I think that, in the past, and I think a lot of people have moved away from this, but in the past, people really focus on those vanity metrics, likes, shares, comments, and that just doesn't cut it anymore. It's the rate at which those things happen that gives you a good benchmark from which you can judge your performance from year to year. And if we get if you think about the continuum between direct marketing and branding, as you get more to the branding side, you're thinking more about reach and spread, and also sentiment around the comments. So I think that as we move again back towards the kind of the direct marketing side, it is very much about that paying attention, listening, and responding in real time. I think we can't say that enough. And I've seen a lot of schools that do that, but I always see there's always some improvement, and a lot of it comes down to measuring against the previous period. And I see that a lot of schools aren't necessarily doing that. They just keep going and forget that social media is a big part of that process.
Well, a great example of this, and I think it's something to think about, and I know this went viral recently with all the snow that hit the East Coast. I don't know if anybody out there, and maybe you did, but did you see the video that Georgia Tech posted of their swimmers doing their workout in the snow, backstroking through the snow somewhere in Virginia because they were snowed in after a swim meet or before a swim meet? But they captured the moment and shared it, and that went just leaps and bounds. It went viral. And if you can capture those moments, look for those moments, those little things, if somebody's paying attention, and share it in the right way, what kind of reach did they just get?
Exactly.
I mean, they were so excited because they had that, but they touched a lot of people, and so who knows? You might have one of those things come about. You got to capture the moment, look for them. So
right, and got to be ready, pretty much.
You do, and you got to have a plan of how I'm going to share it. So it's just that's good stuff. So I want to encourage you to keep going.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you talk about admitted student websites, we talked a little bit about that earlier, but those online things, if you do have a place on your web where students can go and log in and do things and take advantage, and do actions on there, whether it ties back into enrollment or ties into the next steps, just keep an eye on those analytics. Pay attention to that stuff. Make sure it's feeding back into your regular CRM so that you're gauging that and you're measuring it. That's just key. That's tying online back into your CRM, tying it into what you're doing through your recruitment function. I think. Yeah,
and there I would again add that keeping with the admitted student site, often it's I've experienced places where the schools can't necessarily, or our contacts can't necessarily get all the analytics, and it's like have to jump through 3 hoops on Sunday in order to get to the IT department so that they're providing you the data. And just like with some of our admitted student sites, we were able to, or digital view books, we're able to provide that data directly back to the client so that we can make changes, right? We look at the data to tell us who's clicking on what, where, and when, and then we can move those things around to improve whichever metric we want to grow.
Exactly. So I mean, and the retargeting and the search engine, being able to, with your search engine, being able to connect back with families. I mean, I think retargeting, sort of Amazon is the king of this retargeting world, and it brings stuff top to mind. I just am I love it because, if I'm looking at certain things, I know it's coming back up, and there it is again, and there's an option to it. So why not have that happening with your students, that you're top of mind again? So I think that's important.
Great.
You can talk about the SEM side of things, Tal, if you want.
Oh yeah, so on the searching marketing, so I often lump search engine marketing with retargeting, but in the overall student search, you're looking at SEO and also SEM, which could be display advertising or pay-per-click. The display advertising, we usually use it for keeping up with visit days, and since we know how important it is to get students on campus, we can run those display ads and keep refreshing them throughout the year. And with pay-per-click, people often ask, why are we paying for ads to for my school when I show up at the top of the search engine rankings? But the answer to that is that other people are probably competing with your words, using your school as one of their keywords. So you type in Oakland University, you may wind up with University of San Francisco or FSFU. And so the world's changed enough that now we have to compete at every single level, and even our own keywords are not safe. And during the acceptance student phase, especially if we want to, students are going to look up your website, and to ensure that you're going to be the top of that funnel or top of that those rankings, you need to put an ad up there and hope that Wikipedia hasn't come in above your institution.
Right, definitely.
So I think we've covered that. I could talk about this all day, obviously. And at this point, we have to run a little bit over, but I wanted to take a couple seconds to see if anybody has any questions, and we'll make
Well, and I want to say, too, everybody out there, I appreciate you guys bearing with us as we got started just a minute or two later than we had anticipated, and hopefully we've left you a few nuggets along the way, and we'll talk about our folks that help contribute to this too in a minute too. But thanks again for giving us some time out of your day. I know there's 40 or so people out there that are watching, and there'll be others down the line that'll be watching. So thanks again.
Yeah, and so then actually one did come in. So one thing we didn't really talk about was financial aid processes. Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, let me touch on that. Today's times and with prior year backing things up and people using their same taxes for as they did the year before to do FAFSAs and stuff. That whole process is sort of in a state of flux, and financial aid has become such a yield point now. I just challenge you to get your financial aid packages. Not necessarily what's in them, the dollar amounts, but get them looking better. Get them more user-friendly. Think about the first-gen families. Think about the families that are comparing your package to 4 or 5 others when it's laid out on the table when they're trying to make the decision of what school can we afford the best, and doing the bottom line stuff. Is it user-friendly? Does it show value? Does it show why they should choose you because of outcomes? Lots of questions to think about. It's one of those things you definitely need to gather from some of your folks around your team that maybe have applied and got accepted and got financial aid awards from other schools to see where yours looks like and how is it presented. It is one of the very last yield points before a kid makes a decision 9 times out of 10. So
gotcha.
It's an important thing.
Okay, so we do want to say thank you to our friends at these schools. It was extremely helpful for us to get that information, and we thank you a lot. We got a lot of top 10 and top 5 tips from folks. And then finally, say again, Tom? Say again?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. And there's a great number of schools there, and some of those gentlemen and ladies are good friends, and I appreciate their time and effort that they took to provide a lot of this information. And and some of them are probably on today. Who knows? So
yeah,
go ahead, Tom.
yeah. So and then finally wrapping up, I want to plug our next webinar. We're going to have a conversation with Jeff Pierpont at College Raptor to talk about predictive modeling and identifying the right fit between the student and the school. And with that, we will sign off, and I hope everybody has a good rest of the day. And we'll be recording this webinar, and we will be transcribing it and posting it a little bit later this week. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Nathan. Our information is at the bottom of this slide, and I wish you all the best of luck, and we will talk next time.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.